Play ball.
How you doing, baseball fans, and welcome to another edition of the Brushback with JP Ricciardi. I'm John Arezzi. Let me introduce the star of the show, the former general manager of the Toronto Blue Jays, front office executive for the Oakland A's, New York Mets, and San Francisco Giants, and now even in the broadcast booth for the Boston Red Sox AAA affiliate. Let's bring on JP. JP, how you doing?
Hey, John, how you doing? Everything's good.
Wow, I think we're going to have a blockbuster show today. Somebody that you've known since high school, one of the most powerful sports agents in the world, according to Forbes Magazine.
Yeah, we're going to have Jeff Berry on today, and I think he's going to be very enlightening as to some of the things that have gone on in his career representing players. It's nice to hear a different angle, which we've said all along from this show. We want to represent every possible avenue that touches baseball. This is not a player. This is not a front office executive. It's not a media member. It's an agent, a very, very successful agent that I've known for a long time. So I think it's going to be informative, entertaining, and exciting for us to have Jeff on.
And you knew him since way back.
I scouted him when he played in high school. I scouted him when he played in college. He was a good player. And obviously he went on to get his law degree and has turned it into a very, very lucrative job as a representative for players. But he's just a good guy. You know, he's a guy that you could always have good conversations baseball-wise with, and his baseball background allows him to get it. So I think people are going to really enjoy this one.
Well, we look forward to that. And without further ado, why don't we do it? Why don't we bring Jeff on now? So now it's time for Batter Up with JP. Now it's time for Batter Up with JP. Repeatedly recognized by Forbes Magazine as one of the world's most powerful sports agents, JP's guests recently negotiated record-setting contracts for Astros closer Josh Hader, Pirates outfielder Bryan Reynolds, Phillies shortstop Trey Turner, and catcher JT Realmuto. He has personally negotiated more than $2.6 billion, that's billion with a B, in major league contracts. He was the longtime co-head of CAA baseball. He's been a Major League Baseball sports agent and attorney since 1998 and a longtime friend of JP. Let's welcome to Batter Up with JP, Jeff Berry. Jeff, welcome to the Brushback.
Thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here. I told you guys right from the start. I look at this, my white hair. We got to get hair and makeup on me next time if I ever come on this again. But thanks for having me.
You look like Richard Gere, I said.
Oh, I'll take it.
So let me go back with my Jeff Berry. First of all, I'm going to start this off by telling you, in baseball, you deal with a lot of agents. Very few of them are like Jeff that have a baseball background. They're actually good people. You could have good conversations with. You learn something about the game. You learn something about baseball. There's an excellent give and take. He's always been one of my favorites. I scouted him in high school. He was a very good player as a catcher. He went on to Northeastern to play. He's done amazing, amazing things, and I was really happy to hear that he was willing to come on the show. So I'm going to get right into it with you, Jeff, because you were at the top of your game, represented so many good baseball players. Hader, Realmuto, Halladay, Turner, Buster Posey, just to mention a few. Why stop now?
I've gotten asked that question a lot. And the reality of it is, I love baseball. I love being an agent. But it had gotten to the point where, look, ultimately we're all left with what we tolerate. And I had become frustrated. I got tired of trying to rationalize and explain away to some of the best players in the world stuff that was unexplainable. Things that, that went on that I couldn't justify. I couldn't justify that if I'm an agent, I can't protect Josh Hader and JT Realmuto, then what's my job? And I'm not a concierge. I'm not a content creator. I have a job to do for some of the best players in the world. And I saw it take place, even going back to 2020, really, kind of cemented or started my plans for departure when I lost the hearings for Hader and Realmuto. It was I look at that and I'm like, you know what? I can't accept that anymore. And that's kind of why I left.
So you say, obviously your job was always to protect the players. Um, so give the listeners. We have a lot of people who listen to the show and different young kids who are trying to be lawyers or representatives or whatever. Talk to the audience about what your frustrations were about protecting these players and representing these players and the roadblocks you went into that make us all sometimes bang our head against the wall.
I'm all right, and I'll try to do this, and I want you to jump in. Obviously, as a former GM that has experience in this realm, is with Josh Hader and JT Realmuto. You've obviously read the article on Hader, right? And what did you take from that? Can I ask you that? What did you take from that
Well,
article?
let me back up a step
All
because
right.
most of our listeners might not even know what you're talking about. So walk them through the Josh Hader experience because I thought it was fascinating.
No, but so in the article, Hader went, and it takes a lot. Buster only covered this really well, and I was willing to speak about it because I'm no longer an agent. I'm free to opine, right? So Josh Hader, and I had sent you those, the quotes from David Stearns. He was widely recognized as the best closer in the world. He was take that back. He was recognized as the best reliever in the world. He had the highest strikeout rate in history, lowest batting average against in history, had just done incredible work for the Brewers. David Stearns had said, look, this guy's the best in the world. We're using him is the most valuable. It's shocking to me how much value this can bring to a team, yada, yada, yada. So when he's eligible for arbitration, we file at the top of the first time ARB eligible reliever market. When we file to that, David's like, or when we talk about, dialogue pre-exchange, right? And then you're going to have to go in, and this is what it's hard to cover. Why I'm going to have to write a book is we're now in a file and trial world, right? Like I either accept the Brewers offer or I go to a hearing. And Josh he's the back-to-back Hoffman reliever, et cetera, et cetera. And people think, well, all right, so there's a negotiation. No, there's not a negotiation. Stearns has a dollar amount that's been given to him by Major League Baseball. Said, look, you know, you know how arbitration works. I don't think you're wrong. We do. I've said publicly how great Josh Hader is, but that's how the ARB system works. So we don't come to an agreement. We file $100,000 over Jonathan Papelbon, which is also an embarrassment because Papelbon's 11 years old when I file. And Hader is the most dominant reliever in baseball and by numbers, maybe in history. Craig Counsell said that. Stearns has said that. We walk in, so we go to a hearing, and I really recommend. Do you guys post stuff on your YouTube channel or links to articles?
Yeah, we
Put
can.
the only article I think does a good job. But we go in there and it's like, no, Mr. Berry seeks to change 40 years of salary arbitration precedent where it's clearly established that saves are the currency by which relievers are valued. And it's like, but we all know that's not true.
Right.
And nobody believes that, particularly the Brewers. So my bigger concern was I watched kids walk in and out of that arbitration room fighting for something they didn't believe in, watching the Brewers capitulate to Major League Baseball to operate against their own interest against a superstar player. Why would that happen, JP? Because I think it's terrible business. You have the best, we all agree he's the best. We're not trying to overreach. If anything, I'm embarrassed as an agent that I'm going 100 grand over an 11-year-old deal. But why would Major League Baseball? Because Stearns doesn't believe that. He allowed Major League Baseball to fight for something he didn't believe in against his own player. And I'm asking you as a former GM, why?
That's a good question. All I can tell you is when I was in charge, whenever I had the resources to pay players and they were good players, I paid them. I
No,
didn't
but
want.
I don't think it was their option. And the LRD commandeered arbitration. They give all the people, they give everyone a number, a file and trial number. And I see so many of and I'm convinced I saw a lot of the things that, oh, Hader just protected himself for free agency, this or that. We never contemplated protecting anything, right? We only reacted to when they said, nah, look, and we lost the case because no, he didn't have the saves. Well, he's pitching in the 7 outs in the 4th inning. Of course he doesn't have
Right.
saves. But he's back-to-back reliever of the year. He's back-to-back all-star. He has the lowest batting average against, highest strikeout rate in history. And the Brewers have repeatedly public acknowledged he's the best in the game. So the debate for me, when I watch people walking all the LRD, it was like a Morgan Sword Youth Army fighting for something I knew they knew wasn't true and winning. I was like, I can't let this happen. I can't. I mean, what am I like? I remember sitting there saying, what am I doing? Like, what am I doing with my life? If you can't protect Josh Hader,
Right.
if anything, David Stern should have just written him a sweet note and said, Josh, thanks for all you do for the Brewers. We're glad to pay you this amount.
Well, it brings me to the next question. And there's money enough to be thrown. So why didn't the Brewers just come to Hader and say exactly what you said? And this is my point. If I like a player, why do I want to upset the player? Why wouldn't I go to the player and say, let me give you a 3-year deal with this kind of money and get through the whole arbitration process?
Well, and we weren't, and that's the thing. We weren't even looking for a 3-year deal. But that's the question I have for you is
Well,
file
that's
and
what I would
trial.
do.
No, but I'm saying, but I don't think you had the ability to do that. Not if it makes him, because what MLB commandeered the arbitration system. They took it away from the teams. I used to deal with JP Ricciardi. I used to deal with Anthopoulos. Actually, still do. Now I have some kid that's given a script by the LRD and a number. And if you do that, you're not operating in the best interest of your individual franchise.
Right.
You're, like I said, you're prostrating yourself to Major League Baseball. They control that. And then the teams just throw up their hands and say, look, hey, it's out of our hands.
Right.
Terrible for business. That's an efficiency mindset. And what they wanted to do, everyone knows that's not true. And I've had people say, well, guys with saves benefit. And I'm like, no, they don't. They just, if they're not any good, they get non-tendered.
Right.
Like, that's what fans don't realize. Arbitration is just a club option with no buyout.
Right.
And so the whole thing of it is, I want to televise arbitration, JP. I don't know. Can we get your producer? What's his name? Marsh? Get your whole team.
I like that.
No, because it's awesome. You
Right.
don't say things that are said in MLB tries to villainize arbitration, and players are grown up by agents that are scared to go, oh, it's a terrible process. It's this or that. It's really not. I've been to a lot of them. I've lost way more than I've won. But the idea of it is, I don't look at it as all that adversarial. You remember Corey Hart, the tall outfielder from
the Brewers?
Yep. Awesome. Wonderful kid. We went to a hearing, I don't know, 15, 20 years ago. He won it. And, or he, even before he knew if he won or lost, we leave and he goes, that wasn't that bad. My dad used to say way worse shit to me than that. Meaning, the players are conned into thinking the players are the power. The players are the tough guys that go out there every day. They've lived. There's nothing you could say in an arbor room that the player doesn't know he's already done. And if you do it in public, you won't try to manipulate the truth because you get called out, right? So it's like, I don't know. I want to televise it because I think it's a huge monetary gain. I think it's a huge promotion of the sport. And I think, have everybody file. The league wants to go file and trial. Have everybody file and just make it a sport. Make it an off-season, I don't know, programming. I think it'd be great.
We never went to arbitration with guys because we always found we always would look at the value of the player. And if we were off by $100,000, that would have been an easy settlement for us. I never understood the whole going to arbitration. I could see if a guy was not a very good player and he was asking for the moon and there was some type of disparity, but most of these are very easy and
No,
doable
and
things.
JP, this is the crazy thing for me too, with because I had that year, I had the two best in the world. JT Realmuto is about as good as you can get. He's a third-time ARB eligible catcher. Catchers have the precedent in ARB was all right. Well, catchers can only be compared to catchers. JT, I got the JT and JP is a tough one, but Realmuto plays every day, and he plays more than position players. Yet arbitration says, all right, well, catchers can only be compared to catchers. It's like this is illogical.
Right.
He plays more. He had almost identical statistics to Anthony Rendon, yet made $2.5 million less under the argument that, well, catchers can only be compared to catchers. So instead of identical statistics or very close statistics to Rendon going through the system as third-time ARB eligible players, he's more like Grandal. No, he's not. He plays more. If you're a catcher, you should be rewarded. And Realmuto and I had always tried to change the catching market, and we couldn't. And my point is, the Phillies took us to arbitration over that. And Scott Profrock, you know Profrock?
Yeah, very well.
He's a nice guy. I've known him forever too. He goes, this needs to be fixed, meaning you're not wrong. Prior to the hearing, they made an offer that didn't make any sense, but it was still like far beyond the ARB. They didn't want us to challenge the ARB system. And he knew we were right. He's like, someone needs to change this. And we go to a hearing, again, kids running in and out of the room, fighting for something that no one believes in. And my bigger issue was the Phillies allowed it to happen. And John Middleton's a great owner, great owner. But it's like JT Realmuto 2 nights ago, I think I called you on this. He got a foul tip, hit him right in the cup. And he's down on the ground. I mean, out. And he starts to get up slowly. The crowd rises. They're clapping. They're going crazy. JT Realmuto is a show up guy. He plays more than Anthony Rendon, right? They come through the ARB system together. And that was the closest comp that there was. And I had, I don't know what it was. I have the article here somewhere. But the point of it is, the stats were so similar, yet JT catches every day. The Phillies know he catches every day. Why would a team intentionally no, that's just the rules? Why would they? That's bad for business. That's an efficiency mindset mandated by the LRD. I have no idea. My point being, JT Realmuto and Josh Hader are the type of employees you want.
Why? It's up to the team.
Why would you celebrate them?
But it's up to the team at that point to notice that.
The team doesn't have the authority, JP. That's what I'm telling you.
Well, I'm going to tell you, we had Halladay in Toronto, right? And there's no better competitor than Roy Halladay. I never wanted to go to arbitration with Roy Halladay. I wanted to make Roy Halladay as happy as possible. I went to Roy and said, Roy, let's do a deal. Let's do a long-term deal. What do you want? Tell me what you like here. Boom, boom, boom. It was a coexistence. I felt like I was a partnership with Roy Halladay. We got a 5-year extension for Roy. Great money. He gave us a little bit of a break, but I didn't even care if he gave us a break. He deserved every penny he got because every fifth day was the only time as a GM I went like this. I knew Roy Halladay was going to the mound. So why?
And you were sold out too, probably. Your fans were in the stands.
We probably had a few more. I didn't care because I was playing to win. The only time I had money in Toronto, I spent the money. I spent it. I went after AJ Burnett. I was the first guy to give an out after 3 years. I went after BJ Ryan. I made him the highest paid closer in baseball at the time. I traded. We had a little bit of money. We spent the money because I wanted to win. I never understood why teams are trying to follow the marching orders I remember I traded for Scott Schoenweiss. I gave him $2.5 million as a left hand. I never had a left hander in my bullpen. I get a call from Frank Coonley. He goes, "You gave Scott Schoenweiss $2.5 million?" I go, "Yeah." He goes, "Why?" I said, "You want to know why? I'm sick of getting my ass kicked by the Yankees because I don't have a left hander to come out of the bullpen. That's why." I said, "If you could get me a left hander for cheaper, let me know." He didn't
And
like the answer,
What
but
was Frank Coonley doing then? He was running the MLB.
he was doing all the salaries and
Yeah. Well, and
once you
that's the thing is like when you go after, and this is the implication. So, and here's the other thing too. This is why I say I don't even think they removed John Middleton. They removed the owners. John Middleton would never do that to JT Realmuto. Realmuto's back behind the plate every day, giving everything he has, right? Like he plays all the time. Well, you're a catcher, so you make $2.5 million less. That's insane. And it's like it's demeaning. Our JT and I, we were locked at the hip. Like someone has to try to make a difference on this. But then nobody, it's done in a dark, dingy hotel room in Phoenix. No one ever sees this. The union doesn't talk about it. Everyone's scared to speak out. But that's ultimately why I left, because I saw two of the best players in the world. People think, oh, well, Hader was protecting himself. No, he wasn't. Hader was responding to MLB's fighting for something they didn't believe in. The Brewers acquiescing to MLB just so it holds down reliever salaries. Why do we want to do that? There's
So let
no.
me ask you something. I mean, I couldn't agree with you more. I'm a big believer in paying the good players. That I have no problem with that. So how do we change it? How
Well,
do
I
we
think one, you televise arbitration. I think things that are done in the dark, that are done in a closet, that are done, uh, you know, with no transparency, I think that gets wonky. Those decisions with Real Muto and Hader would have never been allowed to exist in the light of day. Period. And that's where I would start with doing that. And the whole thing too, like again, when I said, "Oh, I want to leave I decided to leave the agent business." I want to be, if nothing else, a disruptive voice of common sense that at least challenges, you know, some of these ideological efficiency or what I consider often fraudulent intellectual concepts of front office.
oh,
And my goal is I want to make the game more popular and profitable for all. I think Major League Baseball, look, and people are critical of Rob Manfred. I think he single handedly saved the game just with the pitch clock. I think it's been that good.
yeah, I
Like,
agree.
I love, I go in the Hall of Fame just for that one thing. And it's been that good and that impactful. And it took courage to do that in a lot of ways because he had to do it unilaterally.
Yeah.
The union would have never agreed to it right out of hand because they have, this tit for tat and this, all. No, he saved the game by it was unwatchable
I'll tell
for a
you
while.
how important that move was. Every baseball person I talk to, people like yourself, what they all have stated how much the pitch clock has brought them back to watching games.
I love
That's
watching
yeah,
games.
it's a lot. I've been doing some games on television, and I can't believe how fast they go now. It's great.
Well, you know what it was? I represented Mark Burley forever, and his like the tempo of his game,
Yeah,
boom, boom,
yeah,
boom, was awesome. And Doc was the same way.
yeah.
He would like go, and the whole idea of like it's a 3.5 hour slog and like 4 hour game. It's like unwatchable
Yeah. Yep.
now, and that's why I think like look, I think baseball is on the precipice of an absolute boom era. And the way I say that, one, the commissioner made sped up the games. You have 190 dates of live content now and watchable content. And people are talking about the RSNs, this and that. It is a gold mine of live television, and I think they've done a great job. I like the games on television. Uh, the angles. Baseball's a really good TV sport,
Yeah.
and I think it's been terrific. So I think there's a ton of growth opportunity, but I don't think there's a growth opportunity when you have this efficiency mindset of, oh, let's stick it to Hader, let's stick it to Realmuto, and the teams don't believe it. That's MLB doing that to their elite product. That's insane.
Well, you mentioned something that, I think unfortunately is lacking not only
Hmm.
in our game, but in a lot of areas. Common sense. We've lost common sense in baseball. When you think about the way front offices are run today, it's all about analytical breakdown of every possible thing that goes into putting a team together. And we've lost the feel for players. We've lost the feel for people who work in the industry. Used to be relationships, you, me, you with someone else, got things done. There's such a divide now when it comes to front offices and even their own personnel. That's what scares me about the future of baseball. It's becoming almost an AI sport.
Yeah, well, what look, I'm a huge analytics guy. You know who is a huge analytics guy? He never gets any credit for it. Brian Sabian.
Yep.
He
Yep.
was a huge analytics guy. He was using Vince Gennaro before anybody knew who that was, right? And analytics are just statistics. And statistics have always been a huge part of player development, of scouting, of anything. But look, you're a Moneyball guy, JP. You and Billy Bean grew up together. And that was one of the, that created one, nobody knew about Sabian doing all that, right? But Billy Bean's really cool. You know that.
Yeah.
Like Billy Bean's cool.
Yeah.
When I was an agent just starting out and Billy Bean would call me, I was like, oh man, this is Billy Bean on the phone.
Oh yeah, he could talk.
No, and he's awesome. I got a good Billy Bean story on Joe Blanton here in a second. And Brad Pitt's so freaking handsome. And Michael Lewis is such a great writer. How could that not be an impactful book and movie? It was awesome.
Yeah.
But the reality of it was, on any of that, Billy Bean was just all right, what are the inefficiencies? But Billy Bean was fearless. He was a leader. When Billy walked in a room, it was his room. And it wasn't based on his intellect, right? It was based on, he was like, all right, I'm going to impose my will. He did that. And I thought they did a good job in the movie. Like when he goes in and he talks to David Justice, like, dude, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Billy wasn't, and he was a huge fan of his.
Well,
But
Billy, not to cut you off, but what people don't understand is I try to remind them all the time. Moneyball, it wasn't so much the ineffective market, it was the only chance we had to survive. We had to have opportunities for players because we didn't have a lot of money. So it was the only way we could compete. And
right,
that was where we took advantage of it. Because I guarantee you, if we had a lot more money, we wouldn't be signing Matt Stairs as a 6-year free agent. We wouldn't be claiming half the guys we did on waivers. It was survival for us. But
right.
Billy brought it to another level because of the intensity he brought. Look at one of my dear friends. I love him to death. I miss working with him. But that intensity, he was the best to work with because he really trusted you and challenged you. It was great. I miss working with him.
It was funny. We would have arbitration things early or pre-arbitration. And so in pre-arbitration, the team unilaterally determines your salary. And so, the A's would do all right, if you're 1 year in the big leagues, you get a $5,000 raise. If you're 2 years in the big leagues, you get a $10,000 raise, and something like that. And Joe Blanton had thrown 240 innings, and he was getting the same raise as a guy that had a year of service and 75 at bats. And I'm like, Billy, I can't do this. He goes, well, then we're just going to pay him the minimum. So you do something called a 10A renewal.
Right.
And Billy would be the one. Nowadays, you would talk to some kid that's just out of college that is running their arm. Billy would and this was when you had office phones. And Billy would hey, Jeff, no, hold on. You're going to take the renewal, right? He goes, hold on, let me put you on speaker. He would put me on, I don't know if it was real speaker or fake speaker, hold it up to his entire office and say, hey, guys, we're getting new computers. Tell Jeff Berry, thank you. Billy's like, man, this means a world to me, Jeff. We got new computers now, and no, all because of you. Thanks a bunch. No, it was awesome.
We drafted Jeff Blanton.
No, you drafted. I had two of your Moneyball guys. I had Joe Blanton and Mark Teahan.
You know how we got Blanton? I went to scout Blanton at Vanderbilt, and Billy calls me up. He goes, "Who you watching?" I says, "Joe Blanton." He goes, "You like him?" I said, "I'm going to tell you right now, we're not going to take him." I said, "But you should take him." I said, "This kid is going to be a solid big league guy."
No,
Billy calls me back. He goes, "We're taking Blanton." I said, "You do know I don't work for you anymore."
Yeah.
Yeah,
No, it
Blanton
was good. And Blanton won 100 games in the big leagues, had a great career.
really
Like,
good.
and he was tough as nails. And it was interesting. And he played the Kentucky team that year.
They
Was
weren't
one
very
of the
good.
worst Division I teams I'd
They were
ever
not
seen.
very good.
No, they were horrendous. It was the worst Division I team I saw in 30 years.
Oh.
And Joe was he's a show up guy.
Okay, so my question now is, you were in the game a long time. You've
Yeah.
obviously you've seen so much of the ebb and flow. What do you see about front offices and how they're being run today, and how they've changed? Is it more efficient? Do you like it? Give me your
No,
thoughts.
I think the front offices, I think people have hidden behind analytics. I think it's why your protege is so good because he's a leader and he's fearless. He takes accountability, is Anthopoulos. I love going like talking to him on different things. So many of the things that you see now, and this goes back a few years. I remember it's funny because all the front offices, if you have the ability to put together a PowerPoint, if you have there is an intellectual, I don't know, like trickery almost of like, our math is better than their math. We have better math. And it's like, dude, there's AI. Math is cheap, leadership and accountability aren't. And that's a big distinction to make. I don't even know who Anthopoulos' number 2 is. Do you?
Nope.
Like, and he's a dude. When you have these hierarchies of 15 people, I've got a president of baseball. A GM's like, do you know that a GM's like third or fourth on the totem pole now? Like, there's so many different levels of,
Yeah.
and I think it's false complexity because it's like, I don't know, these guys are really smart. And the reality of it is, a lot of them are. And that's the thing. I don't want to take away from it. I'm convinced that if David Stearns and Steve Cohen combined their IQs, they could melt the sun, right? Like, they're smart and they're wealthy and they're like, but their team's not very good. Why? Well, I don't know. Lindor's not playing that well. Nimmo has been disappointing. Alonso's been mediocre. Singa's hurt. Like, and it's kind of, and I've told you this before, I'll steal a line from James Carville is, no, it's the players, stupid. Like, it ain't the intellect of the front office. And you see so many of the transactions that take place today are done to like generate work, right? Like, oh, we're, the Boston Red Sox, we have signed Sedan Raphael, or what is it, Rafaela Sedan?
Yeah,
Sedana and Bello, they signed them for over $100 million combined.
Right.
You realize they had 11 club options on those players, meaning they didn't have to make a move on either of those players for 5 or 6 years. So your math is so good, your projections are so good that you'll commit $100+ million of the organization's money to guys that you have no idea about. And you have 11 club options between the two. You know what kind of flexibility that gives you? Yet you don't make a move on any established free agents that are out in the market. Why? Because signing a free agent out in the market, that's, you can't show how smart you are. Now, if either of those players don't make it, they don't become anything. It just kind of goes off into the ether. No one ever notices it. You sign a free agent, that puts you front and center. That puts you in the crosshairs. And that's the thing that I think is lacking in front offices is courage and conviction to win the day today. Not, and a great example of this is when you talk about front offices, I think it's an echo chamber of the media, right? The media goes on, they fawn over these guys. Oh, their intellect. Ken Rosenthal, who's a really nice guy, He wrote an article back in February, why the Brewers had to trade Corbin Burns. Corbin Burns was only making $15 million, right? And he writes a whole article. And as a side note, JP, the Wisconsin taxpayers, they gave $550 million to refurbish the stadium,
Right.
right?
Right.
So you have one of the top 1, 2, or 3 pitchers in the world, inarguable, right?
Yeah. No.
And an article is written why the Brewers had to trade Corbin Burns. And I'm looking at this and I'm like, what? And then I read an interview that Rice Hoskins, or I watch an interview. He does an interview with Foul Territory. And Reese Hoskins says, I was surprised to see Corbin go, but in order to have success here in a smaller market, these are the kind of moves that have to happen. And I'm like,
brainwash.
what?
Brainwash. It's a brainwash.
I'm like, I'm telling you, if you're in Milwaukee, you should go get like everybody huge cases of Miller Lite from the plant and like storm the gates of that stadium that you're paying for, because you have a great team. You don't make the team better. Do you think Joey Ortiz and DL Hall are going to make the Brewers better? No. And here's the crazy thing. Rosenthal writes in this article, let me relate a conversation I had with a rival NL executive. The executive conceded that if the Brewers kept Burns, they would be a force in the NL Central in 24. But he actually said he hoped they held on to him, believing it would compromise them greatly long term. How can you say that out loud?
Right.
No, but he's saying so their acquisition of DL Hall and Joey Ortiz sets them up for long term.
How are those guys going to be as good as Burns?
No, but
Exactly.
and the thing of it is, I was having dinner, one of my favorite restaurants in the country, Beach Bistro on Anna Maria Island. I had dinner there, I don't know, 2-3 weeks ago. The owner's a good friend of mine. But Pete Rose was there, one of my all-time childhood heroes, and who's 83 now. And also Doug Melvin was there. And so we were all talking. It was a wonderful night. It was good to see Doug again. And Doug told me, he goes, the greatest move. And Doug was a GM for like 25 years. Like,
And
he's
a
a
good one.
goat.
A very
goat.
good one.
And Doug was a kid that signed out of high school and grew up through scouting, all that sort of thing, but just a really smart guy. And he told me, hands down, the best move of his entire career was when he traded for CC. And that was 2 months. So this is a guy like,
A rental.
Yet now we have an article saying why the Brewers had to trade Corbin Burns. He's making $15 million a year. They're already like, that is not for what he brings you. Like, if he's on an open market, it's $40 million a year.
Right.
And you're paying him 15 and you trade him for Joey Ortiz and DL Hall, and the media praises you for it.
Do you think guys are afraid to win?
No, I don't. I think everybody wants to win. I don't think anybody's afraid to win.
Well, let me rephrase that. Do you think they want to win, but they want to win within the context of how they set up the parameters? So, in other words, we want to win, but we want to win within a $72 to $82 million payroll.
I think they want to show their value to their owners. I think they want to justify their contracts as a front office. I think they want to justify the depth of having 25 analysts. It's Anthopoulos on a computer in Atlanta. That's the reality of it. I don't think they have a deep. Alex he makes his decision, right?
Right.
And so I don't think it's like, oh, we want to be in this or that. I think they want to spend as little as possible, which seems weird to me. You're already guaranteed. Baseball is the only business in the world. John Fisher could sell the A's at huge profits right now. He just chooses not to, right? So it's like, it's impossible to lose money long term. There are 50 billionaires lined up outside of the Gilded Gates that would buy your organization.
Right.
So your risk is minimal. I look at, when you say, oh, well, they're afraid to win. I don't think they're afraid to win. I think they're afraid to win in a way that doesn't show how smart they are. If that makes sense. Meaning
Yeah,
like, no, we pulled this guy off a scrap heap and we developed him.
right.
And I was talking about Sabian and the Giants, and this is a question I have for you. Is Brian Sabian, the Giants, you just came from the Giants organization, obviously not led by him. They won 3 World Series in 5 years. They had the greatest pitching development maybe ever, I guess. If you they developed Bumgarner, Lincecum, and
Kane.
Kane. Pretty good, right? And then their player development must have been incredible. Well, one, their scouting director, John Barr, is a dude, always was. But they drafted, all right, so Posey, Belt, Crawford, Kung Fu Panda. Who am I missing?
Joe,
The
Joe,
No Panic,
Joe Panic.
Joey from the Bronx.
Yeah.
Like they had all these guys that I don't know if they developed them, they drafted them, but they dominated. They had a sold out ballpark for a decade and won 3 World Series in that time with home developed players, drafted, developed, whatever. And not one person from their organization has ever been hired anywhere. Not one. Bobby Evans can't get a job anywhere. Sabian can't get interviews anywhere. You have Bruce Bochy is finally hired by another organization and they win a World Series. That's a lot of luck, right? Yet if you get Coffey or intern for the Rays, even though they've never won a World Series, they play in an empty ballpark and never have a recognizable star player. If you come from the Rays, you're qualified to be a general manager.
So do
You're
you think
qualified to run baseball ops. I don't know
you,
why.
you think that's I have my own opinion on it, but I'm
Well,
curious what you think. I, do you think that's media driven?
yes, because I think the media fawns over, and I'll tell you something. And I think the media fawns over the intellect of these front offices. I'm telling you right now, if the Mets were in first place, the media would be prostrating themselves at Citi Field
Right.
at the feet of Steve Cohen and David Stearns. And
I
again, those guys are smart, like way smart. I'm
yeah, no,
not saying
listen.
that.
Here's the thing. Everybody's
It's the players, stupid. No
right.
different than it's the economy.
Right.
Like it's the players.
Exactly. You just took the words out of my mouth. Everybody in baseball has a certain intellect. You know, people say this guy's smart, that guy. Everybody has a certain intellect. They didn't get there because they were stupid. The bottom line is, I use this analogy all the time. Mike Krzyzewski and Nick Saban are great coaches, and they always talk about their process. Well, if I took Mike Krzyzewski with his process and I said, you now are running Lehigh University's basketball program, you think you're seeing Lehigh in the top 25 in the country? No way. The bottom line is Mike Krzyzewski can walk into every five-star recruit's McDonald All-American's house and say, I want you, I want you. It's all about talent. Is he a great coach? Yes.
Right.
But I have access to talent. If you don't put major league players on a major league field, the Braves are great, right? You look at their lineup, 4 or 5 guys can beat you every night.
Yeah.
So no one's winning games by putting a Missouri Mule in the Kentucky Derby. It don't work that way. So I don't care how smart you are. I kind of get my back up when people tell me how smart they are. I know you're smart. You got the job for a reason. But if you don't surround yourself with good people, Dick Tidrow made Brian Sabian a better GM.
Yeah.
Brian Sabian was groomed by Bill Livesey. Bill Livesey was the architect of all those Yankee teams. So we've gotten away from, I think, baseball people running baseball teams. And I'm not saying you have to be a 100% baseball guy, because Alex is not a 100% baseball guy, but he was surrounded by him in his maturation process. I just think we've gotten so far away from common sense. And just like you said, the better players make me a better GM.
Well, and people weaponize analytics to justify decisions and also to protect themselves from inaction. And what I mean by that, too, is this efficiency mindset. I watched the Phillies, who love JT Realmuto, right? Pay him $2.5 million less in deference to the LRD. It was a joke. I watched all these kids running in and out of the room fighting for something. I said, I knew I had to do something. When JT Realmuto is a free agent, JP, and I think JT is the perfect free agent. He's smart. He's the most athletic catcher in the world. He's tough as nails. His character is elite. and he's a catcher that plays every day. Do you know how many offers we had on JT Realmuto? We had one. I should in 19.
That blows my mind. That really
No,
blows
and
my
that's
mind.
why I got out of the game, because I couldn't make a difference for him. I love JT Realmuto, meaning like I would fight for him like I would my own kids. Like I love the guy, and those guys gave me a career. 30 general managers. All right, so going back to say the mid 70s, Catfish Hunter becomes a free agent. 28 teams fly down to Hickory or wherever, like North Carolina, because it's like no, Catfish Hunter's available. Like he's available. And so everybody's swarming down there. The Yankees had paid $10.5 million for their club a year or two earlier. Nobody was at the ballpark. It was like blah, blah, blah. And then they paid Catfish Hunter $3.5 million. 35% of what they paid for the team. And it was a growth mindset that exploded an empire. Imagine if they were like, oh, we're the Cleveland Indians. We're just smarter than you. We're going to have, we're going to fill our roster with nondescript. Well, guess what? You're going to get a nondescript return from the fans. And you can blame it on the stadium, blame it on the weather, blame it on anything. People flock to see star players. And that's what the Yankees got better than anyone. And so I think JT Realmuto is the most perfect free agent in the last 30 years. And I don't say that loosely. Hader had the lowest batting average against, highest strikeout rate, and healthiest MRI in history. That makes him pretty appealing, right? But, well, he's a closer. Some people may not. He's more of a, and again, I had no calls on him either, which is an embarrassment for the sport. But Realmuto was the perfect free agent. He's a catcher. He made 30 out of 30 teams substantially better. One of the most athletic players in the world, huge character, great intellect. You can rely on JT, and look what he's done since he was back with Philly. There were 30 teams that had a chance to sign him. And it was interesting too, because one of your former employees, the Mets, and this is the part too where I'll talk about the agent business and everything else, because it's fascinating to me, is everybody's thinking, oh, he's going to go to the Mets, right? Sandy Alderson was running the Mets at the time. He called the day free agency opened, like, no, we have interest. I said, great. Looks like a great fit, blah, blah, blah. And JT had loved his time in Philly, but we were open to everything. He was a free agent. We had lost an ARB hearing, right? Like he was open to whatever. And I don't hear from Sandy for another month. A month. And I haven't had any calls or offers in a month. And JT Realmuto is sitting there available. We don't have a single offer, and it's COVID, so there's no winter or it's after COVID, but there's no winter meetings, and people will hide behind that as an excuse. But literally the most perfect free agent in 25 years available, and I don't have an offer. Nothing. Sandy calls me that day and said, hey, would JT, and I always have someone else on the phone. So I had a colleague that was on the phone too, so it's never a he said, she said. And so we're listening to Sandy, and he's like, no, would JT consider 100 or 105 million? I said, look, we'll consider everything. We're open. You guys write the checks. I think he's the best free agent in 25 years, blah, but we're open. Well, I need to know if he would consider it. I just said, Sandy, yes, he'll consider it. He goes, that's not what I'm at. Is that an offer? He goes, no, I can't make an offer right now. And then finally, Sandy gets frustrated. He goes, hey, I could sign another catcher in 10 minutes. This is the second call to Realmuto. I was like, then you need to sign that other catcher. This is like, you have one of the best in the world available to you right now, and this is the way you're going to approach it. Sign the other catcher. And that basically, then they signed McCann for $40 million. And here, when you talked about the media, again, and I'm not picking on Ken Rosenthal, but we might as well, but he's a very prominent writer, right?
Right.
But here's the article in The Athletic. Why Realmuto to Mets didn't happen. And it says, well, free agency ebbs and flows, and sometimes a team and player operate on different timelines. That seems to be what happened with the Mets and Realmuto. One, that's not true. That had nothing to do. we would have signed on day one. The Mets wanted to move more quickly than Realmuto. When it became apparent an agreement could not be reached, they struck a 4-year, $40 million deal with McCann. And then it says Realmuto is believed as seeking a guarantee approximately 3 times that amount. That's not true. I think if anything, I think JT was a $200 million player all day long. But again, when people say, "Oh, well, Hader wanted this much money," JT, no, they didn't. We're open to all offers. I think Hader is the best reliever in the world, but nobody cares what I say when I talk about what a draft value is, right? They
Right.
hide behind I want people to engage. I want to be inclusive. And so what that does, JP, it doesn't give people the opportunity. Oh, they wanted too much money. We couldn't afford that. No, we're available. We'll listen to all of you.
Right.
Like, and still nobody responds. But going back to Realmuto, he writes, some rival execs view Realmuto as the best at his position by the widest margin of any player in the game. It couldn't have been more obvious. Like, he was leaps and bounds at a scarce position. And we had zero outside offers other than the Phillies.
I'm blown away by that.
No, and it's an embarrassment to the sport. It's the
100%.
sheep in front offices that are hiding behind this efficiency. You have JT Realmuto. I was telling JT Realmuto about my workout regime now. I do 45-minute Peloton. Then I do 100 push-ups, JT, and sets of 10. JT doesn't even blink. He goes, "No, you need to do 100 body squats too." That's what I do in the off season. I just did it without even thinking about it. Why? Because it was JT Realmuto.
Yeah.
Like, he's a dude. And you see what he's meant to the Phillies and that franchise.
I love it.
All 30 teams had a chance to sign him.
And you can even say that about Harper. I know
Yes.
that Harper, I know people flinched at that guy has taken to that city, and those fans have taken to
Awesome.
They're going to put a statue up of him beside of the Rocky statue in Philadelphia.
And they should. Go to that ballpark and see how you're
been there.
Yes.
I know it's fun, and Schwarber fits that club too. I mean,
all of them do. Castellanos. Dave Dombrowski was criticized for, he overspent for Schwarber and Castellanos. Did he? Dave Dombrowski's playing in front of a full ballpark competing for a World Series.
That Phillies team reminds me of when the Flyers owned that city with Bobby Clark and those great teams back in the 70s.
Yes.
I've never seen a city. I've gone there many times between the Mets and with the Giants. That ballpark is actually a home field advantage. There aren't many major league. That place is like nuts. Yeah. And they take it to that team. It's just the Harper signing was a great signing.
Unbelievable signing. And the Realmuto signing was an unbelievable signing. And the
Castellanos and Nola. Yeah. And Wheeler and Nola.
Going back to you asked earlier, does the media influence this? And some rival execs view Realmuto, this is Ken Rosenthal, as the best at his position by the widest margin of any player in the game. And it's true. It's not even close. Rosenthal writes, that point is debatable. McCann is 9 months older and his track record not as long, but the difference in F4 between Realmuto and McCann the past 2 seasons is not as great as the difference between, say, free agent outfielders George Springer and Jackie Bradley Jr. And then it goes on. It's like, so the drop off from Realmuto to McCann in the pitcher catcher done is probably not significant if it exists at all. And I'm like, what nitwit with the Mets put together a PowerPoint that convinced Sandy Alderson to approach JT Realmuto in free agency that way? That's my question to you.
I'm baffled by that because if I look at the two players, I've been evaluating players my whole life. If you told me I could have Realmuto or McCann, I would. It wouldn't take me more than 2 seconds to make that decision.
Right?
How? That's what I get baffled by. I saw a thing the other day. One player was a 15.7 WAR, and the other one was 5.7. And they said, which one would you take? Well, one was Joey Gallo, and the other one was Dante Bichette.
Right.
And I'm like, it's a no-brainer. I take Dante Bichette, but Gallo's got a 15.7 WAR. It goes back to the same thing. At some point, aren't you watching? JT Realmuto was head and shoulders above McCann.
No, not
McCann,
even close.
he's a backup catcher in the big leagues. McCann. Realmuto's a star.
Not even close. But again, it's hiding behind the analytics. Oh, we did our work on McCann. I don't care what you did on McCann. I don't care what math you did on McCann. It's not close. And one of the interesting things in, the emperor's new clothes, right? And you have to be careful because, and I always relate this. Jason Hayward, I don't know the guy. I'm sure he's a great guy. I've heard nothing but great things about him. When he was a free agent, you had teams slobbering over themselves to make him an offer. He had 5 offers from 175 to 200 million. And it was because, his WAR was so high. And I kept telling people, and it's funny because my partner at the time was a guy named Brodie Van Wagenen, who ended up running the Mets, all that. And all during the GM meetings, people were talking about, and I want players to get paid well, but I want the logic to be right. It's illogical for me to have the best catcher in the world, not even close, best character in the world, toughest in the world, available and not having any offers, or then having 5 teams at minimum making close to $200 million offers for Jason Hayward because, I don't know, they were excited to show how smart they were. And I kept telling the teams all along, I'm like the boy in the parade yelling, look, the emperor actually has no clothes.
Right.
I'm with we're talking to teams, we're talking to medias. I think it was in Boca Raton that year. And I kept telling everybody, I said, look, the closest comp for Jason Hayward is Mark Teahen. Right. Big guys that hit the ball soft, this or that. And everybody's like, nah, you don't get it. You don't get, the difference in WAR. I was like, look, I get what 12 and 60 is. It's Mark Teahen. And Brodie, it was funny because Brodie's a Stanford guy, smart. He's got wonderful hair that he keeps back and he wants people like, no, he is smart. Brodie pulled me aside and said, hey, you got to quit talking like that. People are going to think we don't understand this. And I'm like, Brodie, it's because I don't. Right. I know what 12 and 60 looks like. He plays right field. I don't care how he runs the bases. And I think a whole industry has been built on that. I think the media echo chambers it. And I think it's kind of the keyboard warriors that people that care enough aren't on the internet, like echoing that all the time. So I think it's a fascinating thing that you have the Giants that did all that. No one's ever hired. The Rays, no. They're brilliant. I don't know. They play in front of an empty stadium. Is that brilliant?
Yep.
Peter Seidler chased after Trey Turner like the Yankees and Catfish Hunter. It was awesome. And he should have. And people criticized him. Oh, he's dying. He is desperate. He is reckless. He's this. I don't know. Last summer, I went to a game it was the Rangers and the Pirates. I was out there for a series, and the stadium was sold out. The energy was unbelievable. I took a red eye back, and I saw it was Baltimore and the Rays, the 2 top teams in the AL East. At the time, this is August, and I could hear the players talking on the field. And I'm thinking to myself, who's winning here? So, I don't know. How long do we have, JP? And has this been any good?
You're doing great. You're doing great. Okay. Yep, you're doing very good. You know why? Because it's free flowing, and that's what we like about it. It's anything that comes across that you want to talk about, you can put out there, and it's entertaining. It's informative, and most people don't hear the things an agent goes through and the things an agent has to deal with and what he's up against, and it's been very insightful.
I think the game can be great. I don't think it's an us versus them mentality. I don't think it should be MLB versus MLBPA, MLB versus the player. But when MLB, when the LRD, when Morgan Sword, when they go after Hader and Realmuto, like we weren't protecting Josh Hader's usage. We were doing basic right and wrong. MLB should have welcomed Josh Hader, not to save a couple $1,000,000 on Hader and Realmuto. Both Stearns basically told us, look, I don't disagree with you, but that's the way the system is. Profrock, someone needs to change this. Meaning they threw up their hands,
Right.
hurt their own organizations in deference to major. That's not good for anyone.
Right.
Imagine what if you're not a superstar, not the best in the world. Like those are the type of attitudes that just, it reinforces the us versus them mentality. And if I can't make a difference for those players as an agent, that's when I decided, like, look, I'll be an opiner of thought. I don't know. Mow
So
my lawn.
yeah. So what's down the road for you as far as
I
you've
want to
got?
write a book.
Well,
The
you're gonna write the book, but you have too much passion for people and players in the game. And is
I
there?
I love it, but you know what I'm doing right now? And it's kind of fun because I believe I'm a huge believer in divine intervention. I believe so much of my life has been laid out, and I've been so fortunate, so blessed each step of the way. John Marabelli, I got into Oklahoma City University School of Law. I got one, Jeff Zona signed me to a minor league contract.
Yep. Good
Thank
guy.
you, Jeff.
Yeah.
Wonderful
Great guy.
guy. He was like 3 years older than me. I was like
Yeah.
a 40-year-old college, fifth-year senior by the time I signed. And I wasn't very good. I could just catch and throw a little bit, but it gave me a wonderful opportunity. I get released, and John Marabelli, who was a scout at the time, was a pitching coach at NC State. I was at UNC Charlotte playing at the time. The Tigers might have a need. He called me, and I said, look, after I'd been released, I'm not interested. And he goes, well, what are you going to do? And I said, I want to go to law school. I took the LSATs when I was in college. I think I could be pretty good at it. He goes, you know what's funny? And this is before cell phones, JP. Like people, like, I don't even know how he found me. And I talked to Marabelli. I was like, no, I don't want to sign with the Tigers. You know, I'm not any good. I'll just catch bullpens like I did for the last year. I don't want to do that anymore. And he goes, I just got off the phone with a good friend of mine that they're looking for a graduate assistant coach. It was Denny Craybaugh and Keith Lytle out in Oklahoma. I'd never been to Oklahoma. I called and bugged them for the next 4 months. I get into the law school. They make me the graduate assistant coach. I don't pay a dime for law school for 3 years. I get to coach at a great place. Freddie Sanchez, National League batting title winner, played there.
Red Sox.
Craybaugh and Lytle were brothers. Denny unfortunately passed away from cancer about 1.5 years ago, but they changed my life. And while I was there, Stan Meek became a close friend of mine.
Another good guy.
Fleming became a close friend of mine. Like
Another
all
good
these people, and I'm like, and it's how I got into the agent business. This is before Jerry Maguire. So it's like all this stuff works out for a reason. And I got to do something I could have only dreamed of. I didn't even know this business existed.
Right.
So it's like, I'm passionate for it, but something will happen. What's next? Right now, I knew I couldn't stay. I was embarrassed as an agent that I was letting what happened to Hader and Realmuto in arbitration happen. I thought that couldn't go unchecked. I'm not doing my job. I'm not a concierge. I'm not going to justify what had happened when there was no justification. And so right now, my son goes to IMG, plays baseball there. I'm having a blast with that.
Oh, nice.
My other boy's a lacrosse player. My little girl just turned 11 years old today.
Oh,
So
happy birthday.
yeah, it's awesome. And
Yeah.
I'm loving it. And my parents, they're 80 and not in great health. They live a mile down the road from me. And it's like, I'm right where I should be right now.
Good.
And I think the game is great. And I think it could be exponentially better. But I think the leadership on both sides is short-sighted. I think the agency business needs a huge revamp of people that are looking out for the interest of their player, not fearful of doing what's right. And, I don't want to lose any clients. And, I see so much of that go on in the agent business. And it's a shame because the players are the ones that are shortchanged. So I don't know. How much longer do we have?
A few more minutes.
I don't have enough because I wanted to go into the Royals too. The
Yeah.
Royals are the ultimate example of Moneyball this offseason. I think I told you earlier, I was at the winter meetings, didn't get one proactive call. The only team that proactively called me was JJ Picola and Scott Sharp. It was just the two of them. We sat down in a room, old school wise. They
Yep.
said, "Hey, we want to sign guys that know how to win, that are great teammates, that are proven character, that are established major leaguers. We're not going to wait around to see what falls through the cracks." And they identified, out of the clients I represented, Waka, Will Smith, and Adam Duvall. Duvall wasn't ready to move, but they wanted him. Waka is 33 games over 500 for his career, was coming off a 14-4 record. He didn't have any other offers at that time. They were just aggressive, right? And it wasn't, there's an article that Mike Petrillo, you were talking about the media, not sure if these Royals are legit. This might convince you. Let's dive into the data and find out. There was no data, JP.
Right.
It was Picola and his assistant GM were trying to sign dudes that know how to win.
I called Farhan Zahidi up and told him you should sign Walker this winter. I just watched him pitch in Boston 5 different times in the season. He'd be perfect for us. I was told we have enough pitching.
Well, and the thing of it is, JP, here's the thing. What's crazy, and this is why I couldn't justify being an agent in this environment anymore. Waka went 11-2 in the AL East, right? And he's a free agent. And I had over a half dozen teams, the sheep of the world. We actually liked him better the year before. I'm like, he was lousy the year before. He was hurt the year before. I know he pitched for Tampa, but you liked him better than when he just went 11-2 in the AL East? I was like,
it's bizarro world. I don't get it. I've never had more bad players. People telling me bad players are good and good players are bad. I can't. Guys would say, "Oh, he won 12 games in the big leagues," but this guy in the minor leagues in Double A is 5-5. We think he's going to be better than the guy in the big leagues, and I'm like, the guy in the big leagues won 12 games. You know how hard it is to win 12 games in the big leagues? It's like you could ask Alex this next time you talk to him. I said, Alex, I know we're going to trade Halladay because all of a sudden they told us we can't spend any money.
yeah.
I said, but I am going to tell you this. Whoever we trade Halladay to, we are not getting Roy Halladay back. Just remember that. He's not coming through that door because God only makes so many of them.
Yeah. No, and I think that is an incredible point. But you can't, if you sign, JP Ricciardi's not smart for Roy Halladay. Your guy's player development was. Mel Queen saved him, right? Like all those things are, but Roy Halladay, no, he's great. Ruben Amaro, who's never been given another opportunity to be a GM, and he went to Stanford, is Ruben. No, I'm going to sign Roy Halladay. I'm going to sign these guys. And they created a really good run in Philly. The point is, if you trade Corbin Burns for Joey Ortiz and DL Hall, it's praised. You even have one of your big offseason acquisitions. Well, we're small market. That's what you have to do. Corbin Burns traded for Joey Ortiz and DL Hall is insane. And a team that can compete for a World Series. Imagine if the Brewers won a World Series.
Aren't you supposed to win? I don't understand that. That's what I love about Brian Sabean. Brian Sabean is a Hall of Famer to me. I tell him that all the time. I tell him all the time, and he says, no. I said, you're going to go in the Hall of Fame. Yep. But the thing I loved about Sabes was every day he got up, he wanted to win. He wasn't sitting there saying, well, we want to win, but we want to show everybody how smart we are, and we're going to do it with lesser players. No, I'm going to go get good players. I remember making deals with Sabes. It was all about him making his team better.
Yeah.
And I think we've lost that. I just
but
think
it doesn't mean, and look, everybody makes good and bad deals.
100%.
The point of it is that the math just protects you from accountability. That's the part. Instead of Sabean made a terrible deal here. Well, we did our work on this guy and this is what we had. Or no, our numbers don't like Waka. Well, he went 11-2, then 14-4, and you could have paid nothing. There was a non-competitive
and
market.
He was an affordable guy, an affordable free agent pitcher with a proven track record.
And then, but when like JT Realmuto, his numbers are through the roof. Not one offer, JP.
That's crazy. That's absolutely
And
crazy.
and the point of it is, well, it was COVID. If you're a bad GM, if you're not on Realmuto full force, well, my owner doesn't want it. Then as a GM, you convince your owner.
Right. Exactly.
Like
Exactly. It's our job.
that's your job
Right.
to not have any. And I think Dave Dombrowski gave us, I don't know, and I talked to Alex about this. Alex is like, oh, you still got record contracts for Realmuto and Hader. And I'm like, Alex, you're missing the point. I should have had 30 teams lined up on my driveway competing for both of those
Right.
guys. And I didn't. I don't care about the money. I should have had a robust, like 30 teams competing for literally the best in the world. Not what I ultimately got or didn't get. There should have been a celebration that they're available, and there wasn't.
Yeah. Well, listen, you've been unbelievable.
I don't know if I have. I think you're just being sweet to me.
No. You've been. Listen, we've been doing these. We know how it goes. All right. You've been honest. You've been forthright. You can see the passion in you. You love what you love what you did. You love the people you represented. You love the game. That's all come across. And don't worry, we're going to get you back on. We're not going to let you get away. We're going to be your trial run, but we're going to get you back on sometime
Yeah,
later
we'll see how it goes. And I'm going to dye my hair next time before I come back on. I can't. I'm looking at this and I'm like, I'm telling you, my hair is not this white in normal life. I know it's gray, but it's like white.
You did great. We're gonna sign off on this though, but really want to thank you. I know that you got a lot going on with your family and things like that. I'm not going to embarrass you, but I am going to tell you, you're always one of my favorites. I
You
love
were
your
mine
honesty.
too.
Well, I enjoyed your honesty. I enjoyed the fact that you love the game. You could always have good baseball conversations with you, and your passion for your players was great. And honestly, there's a few guys that when you deal with, when they're telling you about their player, they educate you and they make you realize that, hey, you know what? That guy's telling me something that I should be paying attention to. So I've always appreciated that, and we're going to get you back on because you got a lot more to say. But thanks so much for doing this.
Thanks. I appreciate it. Thank
All
you,
right.
guys.
I'm kind of blown away right now listening to you guys talk and the things that he revealed to us and why he's not even really as an agent anymore. He left
No.
CAA. And I mean, I was literally blown away by the stories of some of these things that have taken place
Yeah,
in the game of
it
baseball.
makes you shake your head. That's what's good about having different perspectives on the show. Having people talk about different things. I think that's what's going to make our show better than everybody else's. To be honest with you, we're going to get people talking about. I'm going to get a trainer on. I'm going to get a traveling secretary on. We're going to have people talk about. Now, they might not be as entertaining. I mean, he was pretty entertaining.
He was newsworthy.
Yeah.
There is news that
Right.
will come out of this interview.
Right. All right. Well, listen, I hate to run, but I got to run. So.
All right. Well, listen. Let me wrap it up. What do you got on the on deck circle for next week, or do you need to disclose that at this time, or are you just kind of going to keep it under wraps?
Well, I don't want to say it because sometimes these guys have to back out, and I don't want to.
All right. You don't want to say anything that could not happen.
Right.
But anyway, we will wait and see who the next guest is. This was a blockbuster, this one. And JP, I appreciate your time. That'll wrap it up for this week's Brushback with JP Ricciardi. Until next week when we return, this is John Arezzi for JP. Have a great week, everyone.